Welcome you all to the 133rd webinar episode of the webinar series that INHAF has been running for the past few years. The webinar series is appropriately called Rethinking City. As many of you know, we have had over 550 experts, professionals, subject specialists, community groups, and concerned citizens from all over the world presenting their views, perspectives, and solutions on something like 30 to 40 urban themes and sub-themes. We talked about governance and finance and mobility and housing and slums and all that. Even city and Gandhi, we had two webinars on city and Gandhi. They used to tell me that Gandhi has said nothing on cities, but we had some two very good webinars on Gandhi and city. We have over 250 hours of recording in the public domain. And knowledge products in form of a book called Conservation in Indian Cities was published last year. And the second book called City Economies in Global South, Growth, Inclusion, and Sustainability is being published by the world-renowned Routledge. It should be out in the next 3 months' time. And this is based on 7 webinars we organized and other things. I'm delighted that today's webinar on living the climate crisis, overlooked perspective on informal workers in changing urban India is being co-hosted with Urban Management Center and has a highly distinguished panel of 6 subject specialists elaborating multiple dimensions of the matter. I'm grateful to UMC and the panel for making time for this very pertinent theme of informal workers while we prepare to address the climate crisis. To start with, let me share some good news that we are unfolding some 20 new webinars in the coming 3 months. That includes a series of 6 webinars on an incredibly versatile slum upgrading program in Orissa, which is showing the way to deal with the slum problem creatively in our cities. What is happening in big cities and small towns of Orissa has such potential for adoption and replication in other cities of the country that we have named the series Slums Are Solvable. And we are fortunate in having United Nations, UN Habitat, and Cities Alliance, 2 global bodies responsible for habitat and slums, as the co-host for all 6 webinars. We are co-hosting 6 webinar series together. The second set of 5 webinars are with CityNet, an association of Asian cities with some 150 members, which is 35 years old. I've been involved with CityNet from the very beginning. This webinar series focuses on climate change and cities. The inaugural session took place last week on 19th of this month, and the next one takes place on 26th. This series is telling us what cities of Asia, such as Jakarta, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Seoul, and Yokohama are doing to address the formidable climate challenge they are faced with. We have also started a new series of cities of Maharashtra, cities of Gujarat, cities of Tamil Nadu, and cities of Orissa. Some 25 cities are being covered under that series. And that is about their development challenge and how they are coping their development challenge. And finally, let me tell you why we are doing this webinar series for the last many years called Rethinking City. This is 133rd episode. This webinar series is based on 7-part understanding. And I think this is very important. And I have repeatedly told this because this is the central part of the whole webinar series. That one, India's urban challenge is vastly complex and difficult. Two, that our comprehension of the challenge, when I meant we, is that of the government, officials, professionals, and civil society, is worryingly inadequate. We have not understood the nature of our complex challenge. The third is that the response to the challenge is less than what it should be in quality, quantity, sincerity, creativity, and purpose. Fourth, that reflects in the quality of our cities that we have. They're mostly chaotic, underserving, and underperforming. Fifth, that the government alone cannot deal with this challenge. Sixth, that is that there is an impressive pool of talent and knowledge outside the government system. And seventh, the country needs a broad-based societal partnership, government plus society, to handle the complex urban challenge. And this webinar series is a small, highly inadequate, but much needed, sincere effort to take the multiple dimensions of the urban challenge to the people. It's a small contribution to forge the much needed societal partnership. We have a long way to go, but we are determined and contribute to making our efforts. With this rather long context setting for the webinar series on Rethinking City, I hand over to Manvita, Meghna ji, Narayani ji, and the panelists to continue this session. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Kirti Bhai. It's always a pleasure to work with you, and our association goes back many, I think more than 40 years, I guess. So thanks a lot. I'm very impressed with what INHAF does. And I do remember the days when you had recently launched INHAF then. And, we were talking about the efficacy and how it will grow. But I'm very happy to know that lots and lots of people are looking at it, and there's a value. UMC is bringing with INHAF and our work with informal workers in urban India. And I'm very happy that Shruti Narayan, who's heading the C40 in India and in the region now, is going to give us a keynote address. But before she takes over, I will talk about why. Why do we talk about people in the context of climate and in the context of cities? And especially, Kirtibai mentioned how city governments do or unfortunately don't undertake it very seriously, the needs of local action in as part of climate change. I'll share my slides and um, I have a few slides which I've put together. Just one second. Yes. I hope it's visible.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So, so we're looking at how informal workers are in the urban India are facing the challenges, but unfortunately are not part of our ongoing discourse in a larger context of city governments, especially. So, well, Urban Management Center has been working with city governments mainly to professionalize them, to work with them on various issues which govern the cities, from governance to infrastructure to urban poverty. We are non-partisan, non-political organization set up more than 25, now 28 years ago. And our motto is to make cities work for everyone. And we underline everyone. And hence, we are talking to you about what is it that we're missing out in the policy space. So many of us know this. Urban population is more than about 32% in India. Within that, urban poor are about 13%. If you talk about slums, there are about from 17, there are various numbers which float around, but 17 to 22% is what we talk about urban slums. And there are informal settlements and informal sector workers, which constitute to about 83% of our workforce. And this makes a challenge, though they contribute to more than 50% of the country's GDP. But capturing that and looking at their well-being, their dignity, their safety is always a challenge. Within that also, there are women and youth, which needs a special attention. If you see globally and look at the climate crisis, there are more than 70% of our cities are experiencing this climate-related crisis. There are, again, billions of people to be precise, a billion people in informal settlements which are highly vulnerable. And all of this requires a very specific local action. Uh, if you take India, and we've seen how disproportionately impact of climate is impacting our informal workers, what happens is, even if you take heat waves, the number of days when heat waves are experienced have increased from more than 49 days. Now, this means people are getting impacted by heat. We have experienced rain, and we've experienced many other such turmoil which people have to work in this, unfortunate times when it's raining or it's very hot. It's affected from 40 to 71 days. Now, if you take from urban rural, if you take together as an informal workers and from urban and rural areas of the country, about in agriculture, the employment is 50%. And in construction and manufacturing, about 15 to 20% are people in the employment. If we come to income and wages, more than about 10% earn less than 10,000 rupees a month, which makes it harder for them to navigate during the unfortunate times when there's heat or when there's a lot of rain. Their social entitlements is challenged, and a lot of them are also migrants who lack housing, etc. As with part of our work with C40 cities, and we were fortunate to work together in Chennai, and we worked on the climate action plan with them and the government of Tamil Nadu and the city corporation Chennai. What we've seen, we've done a tremendous amount of mapping, and what we see that 30% of such vulnerable communities are impacted due to high flood inundation. Now, as you know, there are many days when it floods, but water from also gets into from our the water streams into the settlements, and they get really inundated. These are the settlements are also impacted due to high heat. And such vulnerable populations were mapped, and you can see that more than 96% of such communities are impacted as well. Recently, we're working with Guwahati, and the situation is not very different. Though being on the plains and surrounded by hills, the Guwahati is also vulnerable to heat and also impacted due to flooding. And we've seen that in recent news as well. Now, what are we doing as a country to challenge this or to to work around this. There are a few programs, and country works on mission more. There are many programs. It's not that we're not responding as a country. We've known that there is urban poverty. So from 89 onwards, if you take livelihoods mission program, which came to be known as National Urban Livelihoods Mission in 2014, which had a precedence in since 1989 on Rozgar Yojana, on UPSB, and SJSRY, etc. But this mission, which was National Urban Livelihood Mission, came into existence in 2014 with a single objective that we need to work with women collectivization. We need to work for their adaptation, financial, otherwise, people would be left behind. So that was a wonderful mission, which is in 2024 has come to a different aspect, and they're focusing on as a new mission on urban poverty alleviation. Now, this mission, which is a new avatar of DANULM, which was known as, is focusing on 6 vulnerable groups. And these vulnerable groups have been identified as construction workers, the sanitation workers, domestic workers, care workers, and these are the people who are going to be benefited as in a focused discussion, and the policy is being framed. So if we have identified, and gig workers, yes, and if we have identified those are vulnerable groups of people who needs to come together, and one of the reasons is also climate needs. So hence, why do we require this climate mainstreaming in urban? Unfortunately, I would say a lot of our city governments talk about it, but the real methodology, the strategy to address climate action isn't there. There are ways in which you can identify, but action planning, which reflects into the budget preparation of the of a urban local body or the state government support, by having a cell or by having motto, or a mission that we are working as a state government, as a city government towards climate action, is not enough. The real action lies in local needs, the local planning processes, which are not embedded into a statutory planning process. Lot of our investments also are not looked at from the climate perspective. And if I just tell you that if the vulnerable populations are to be rehoused, or even if you take housing is one of the important relocation sites, some of these sites you would see are in the low-lying areas, or unfortunately vulnerable areas as well. So what kind of planning we are doing? What kind of, do we have an overlay of areas where much more needs to happen, much more challenges of the sites are? Uh, with this, I will hand over to Shruti, because she has been a voice behind a lot of this work, which city governments and state governments have been taking up, and the challenges Shruti has been facing. I would really like her to talk to us about from challenges to action as part of a keynote address. Over to you, Shruti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manvita.
Apologies. Can I just introduce you? Otherwise,
oh yeah, okay.
The audience will not otherwise get to know you. So thanks, Manvita, and thanks, Shruti, for being able to join this panel today. So Shruti Narayan is the Managing Director of Regions and Mayoral Engagement at C40 Cities. She's based in New Delhi and works closely with city leadership to sustain and scale up City C40's regional efforts. She has almost 2 decades of work experience, specializing in energy efficiency and sustainability. She has worked internationally in several places and brings a lot of policy and nuanced understanding to the whole climate action planning that is happening across several geographies in India. She's also been a faculty member in sustainable design with educational institutions globally. So with that, over to you, Shruti.
Thank you, Meghna, for that kind introduction, and thank you, Kirti Bhai, for and Manvita and everybody for having me. It's an absolute honor, and I really would like to say what a fantastic context setting both of you did. Right, Kirti Bhai talking about the need for capacity building, and I was totally enamored, and I can't even imagine the number of webinars you have created. It's such an important and critical area to build that capacity in today's day and age with young professionals and others on the intersectionality of climate and other issues. So thank you so much for doing this. And Manvita, absolutely fantastic context. I will have very little to add after your fantastic and succinct presentation on the work that you have done. UMC has been an inspiring organization that we have worked with. So thank you. So, just to start, I would like to give a little bit of a context on C40, right? So C40 is a global network of nearly 100 cities that work through a commitment from the city leadership. Typically, that's a mayoral commitment, but as we understand, certain regions, especially like in India, does not have a mayoral commitment that can sometimes, hold. So we work across subnational governments and national governments in India and the bureaucracy here to drive climate action. The way we ensure that the cities are delivering to this ambition is what we call a framework of leadership standards that hold the cities accountable for delivery. Because what we don't want is ambition with no action. And every year, annually, we review the city's progress in our network, ensuring that they are on track or delivering to what their commitment has been. Now, C40 really, and why cities, right? Why do we work with cities? Cities have about 2% of landmass, global landmass, but they face nearly 80% of climate risk. I really love saying that for each one of us living in the world today, this is the coldest year we will ever experience, right? Every year, the world is just getting hotter and hotter. The reality of climate breakdown is in our face, and especially in India. If you've been reading the news, Mumbai and Delhi and several other cities, even in Himachal, have faced direct climate impacts. And as outlined, cities in global south are still growing and probably don't have the money or the funding to manage these kind of climate risks, right? Also, the infrastructure that was built wasn't built for this kind of climate breakdown, right? The intensity of climate disasters now is concentrated, is deviating from averages or scientific predictions. So we need to prepare for a new future together. And we at C40 believe that cities can take action, right? And we actually have a group of 100 cities that are taking action faster than their national governments, and also being able to demonstrate to the national governments that this is possible. How we do this is, one, we believe that any action that one needs to take needs to be data-driven, evidence-based. Action needs to be defined by data. Now, obviously, there is a question in India, and as Manvita highlighted, I must outline the barriers and challenges. So I would say data is a barrier, not only in India, but in global south cities, right? The complexities of urban environment in India is, this is a panel that's like very experienced, and I'm not going to say it, but every single person knows the kind of issues we have with accessing data that's good quality and reliable, because several institutions hold that data in different formats, so it is not aligned. But nevertheless, we believe that we need to get this data together, because otherwise you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So with that understanding, our efforts are that all our cities need to do a climate action plan. Now, what does a climate action plan mean? A climate action plan is a way that we understand climate. And if you talk to a lot of people, they're like, okay, we understand that urban, we're having this deluge where this is urban flooding is happening, heat is happening, but what is climate, right? Now, it is very important through these climate action plans to really be able to express and define the intersectionality of sectoral response that's needed. Climate action plans is not only responding on energy, it's not only responding on mobility, it's not only responding on waste, etc. It is how all of these come together in interacting with each other and the intersectionalities of this that deliver action on ground. And the action on ground needs to be evaluated from a perspective of economic impact, health, and vulnerable population, and a balance of adaptation and mitigation. We have seen sometimes that climate action plans, or sometimes there could be a focus on one or the other. But we are at a moment now in our response that we can't address one without the other. So we need to have a balanced approach that looks at all of this. Now and I'm very proud to say that C40 cities have, nearly all of them have published a climate action plan that is Paris aligned. And as Manvita outlined, we were absolutely thrilled with our partnership with UMC in doing the Chennai climate action plan. And Manvita, you just showed one slide, but how many slides you have on that and how much data you have on that and how long it took to get that together, right? So that is the kind of effort that's needed, and it is possible, right? It may not be complete, but it is possible and comprehensive. And in doing that, we are able to bring the different institutions and departments of the city together for the understanding of climate action, right? Because the time when we look at climate action and governance separately is over. There has to be an absolute paradigm shift when it is about climate governance, especially in global south, where cities are either urbanizing very rapidly, or several new cities are yet to emerge. Infrastructure and built environment, it's projected that 50% of the built environment is yet to be built in global south and in India. Now, while we have a situation to deal with that seems to be quite crisis laden, but there is hope, right? There is hope that we can do this because we're all on this webinar, and I see a very strong participation of participants. That means there is hope, right? And we need to leverage this hope, right? We need to see what we can collectively do together as partners, because this is not something that individual partners can deliver on their own. So I really want to say that partnerships is very critical, right? We cannot work in silos anymore, and bringing partnerships not only at the level of the government, where, Manvita, your one of the slides talked about how it's critical to look at the local to the national and how that movement happens is very important, right? So what are we doing at the city level, and how does that translate to the wards, right? How do we make the councillors accountable, and how are they able to look at their budgets and utilize them, but also creating that pipeline of information that feeds into the state climate action plans and then the national actions that are being taken. So now, what else are we doing around? So, with the help of the climate action plans, we're now moving into the aspect that cities need to deliver mainstreaming, because, and this is very critical, especially in countries like India, where governance changes very quickly. So I'm sure if you look at the Chennai Climate Action Plan, the number of stakeholders that might have changed in the duration of doing that, right? So you lose champions. Now, our intent is not that we do one climate action plan and then we do another one. It is about how do we take the climate action plan that has been done, how do we monitor its delivery? So having robust monitoring, evaluation, reporting systems is very, very critical, that are integrated and are data-driven. Now, when I say data-driven, I'm not saying only tech-enabled. please, I really want to clarify, right? Because we need to develop monitoring, evaluation, reporting systems that are responding and aligning to the capacity of the city that they have, and slowly handholding them to understand what does it mean in collecting this data in a consistent and a continuous way to track their decision-making process. Now, using this data, it's important to create mainstreaming and governance mechanisms. We think there are a couple of governance mechanisms that we have identified that we think are very critical, and I will just outline them. One is, and I think Manvita also brought this up, around accounting. C40 introduced something called climate budgeting, which was actually piloted by the city of Oslo, and we did a global pilot with the intent being that every single rupee that a city spends needs to be with the lens of climate, right? So how do the cities get their accounts in order where they're able to include the targets that are there within the budgeting process? The second is around master planning. And there could be no better way, a better organization or the people on the panel today to talk about this more. So I'm not going to, but I just want to say that master planning is a very, very critical statutory document that can integrate climate action. And we must look at that. UMC has done some really interesting work with us, working closely with the Chennai Metropolitan Development Authority, where we did mapping. And I want to bring in the element of vulnerability here. Climate is a justice issue, right? If we are not able to understand and do a mapping of where these vulnerable areas are, who is the vulnerable population, and it's in where do they live, and it's not only about where they are living, but their access, right? Because if a heat wave strikes, where is the closest hospital that they can access, right? If an urban flooding happens, where do they go? If the light goes off, what are the centers that are close to them? So looking at planning and sort of layering of information like that really helps in understanding. So master planning is a very second critical tool that we think will help. It also helps in locking in growth, right? Where you're able to protect your green areas, your blue areas, your wetlands, very important breathing lungs of the cities that are getting fast urbanized, right? The third is procurement. Cities and urban local bodies are some of the largest procurers of goods around the world. And creating best practices around procurements can really give good market signals and also get the private sector and businesses involved. Because it's very important to know climate action cannot be delivered alone. It needs everybody participating in the city to deliver that, right? The other aspect is looking at strong governance systems that include all of them and developing sectoral plans. Now, I want to just maybe close this by saying that, and I was very compelled by the graph, the slide, Manvita, that you put up that really spoke about how sensitive India is in terms of its population constitution, right? The number of informal workers, the number of people, in poverty. And we need to understand that a single climate risk event can put people in complete poverty, move them back nearly 10 years in their accounts, right? Where they don't have access to even basic things. So this is really important for us to understand that with the kind of workforce that we have, the paradigm shift in our thinking needs to account for livelihood creation, green jobs that really looks and considers the kind of skilling, upskilling, and job protection that's needed. And I want to use the word livelihood protection because it's not just jobs of these workforce that is outdoors. And what are we doing? And I must say there are some fantastic examples actually from Ahmedabad where you all are from, where Seva insurance was put out. That was globally recognized as one of the parametric insurances that looked at outdoor women workers who are even more vulnerable, right? So gender has another lens in that. C40 has done several programs. We have worked with Bangalore in looking at how informal waste workers can become a part of the decision making. And, UMC has done some really far reaching work around this. But there are really strong examples of how informality needs to be included in the discussions on climate. They need to find a seat on the table. They need to be a part of the discussion and the solution. So, I know I may be running out of time but I just want to say that there is climate action planning has to be, I just want to end by saying climate action planning has to be data-driven, evidence-based. It needs to be looking at bringing in all stakeholders on the table through analysis and developing solutions that get integrated into governance mechanisms like master planning, budgeting, procurements, etc. Otherwise, we will keep doing plans and actions, right? So we need to institutionalize this. We need to create capacity in youth professionals so that they can deliver this, right? So thank you again for inviting me and having me over. It's been absolute pleasure to be here, and I hope I was able to add a dimension to what C40 does and the need for climate action plan. I really believe that cities is where the action will take place, and we can together make a difference where cities are more equitable, better places to live, because climate is impacting our health now, and we need to take action very quickly in bringing all of this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Shruti. I guess now I'm handing over to Meghna
Yes.
to take this
Yes.
forward. Thank you. Thanks, Shruti. Thanks a lot. It was really a pleasure. Yeah.
No, thanks, Shruti. I think the urgency that you brought out, that climate change is no longer on the horizon, but we're living through it. And I think the urgency with what action really needs to take place is something that you really highlighted, and that I think the point that you made, that climate change is going to impact all sectors. And that's why the lens of intersectionality has to be very critical. And I think that's something that's a huge takeaway. But with this, I would also like to welcome all participants who have joined us today. And climate change, and how do you deal with climate change, both from a mitigation and adaptation aspects, is something that is really need of the hour. And glad that you all have come here, that you all are here, and you all take back something back to your realms of work. So I hope you all are able to take back something. With this, I would like to introduce the esteemed and distinguished panel that we have put together today. And as Shruti, you pointed out, you need a multi-sectoral, you need an intersectoral approach. The panel today brings a very, very rich experience across diverse areas of data, of research, of advocacy, of actual on-ground implementation, and also across sectors. So we have a team from Seva that is going to talk about their whole work with informal workers. We have Dr. Bhushan, who is going to talk about health and how public health management needs to respond to the whole challenge that we are going to face and we are facing due to climate change. We have Dr. Pradheeps, who also brings up many years of experience, and of course we have my own colleague Xerxes Rao, who's going to talk about sanitation workers. So we have from Seva, we have Anisha Bagban, Anisha Ben, and unfortunately Rashim Ben could not join. She was facing some medical emergency, तो वो नहीं आ पा रही हैं. But we have Heli Brahmakshatriya, who's come in place of her. Anisha Ben is secretary at Seva, जहाँ वो पूरा जो home based workers का जो पूरा काम है वो पूरा मैनेज करती हैं. आई एम गोइंग टू स्विच बिटवीन हिंदी एंड इंग्लिश एज आई गो फॉरवर्ड. वो पूरा जो होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स का ट्रेड कमेटी का जो काम गिरी है पूरा अनीशा बेन संभालती हैं, और उनका बहुत सारा काम पॉलिसी इंटरवेंशंस, लाइवलीहुड सिक्योरिटी और सोशल प्रोटेक्शन को लेके रहा है, स्पेशली अर्बन इनफॉर्मल वर्कर्स के साथ. हेली बेन जो सेवा का पॉलिसी इंटरवेंशन एक्टिविटीज को अभी ओवरसी कर रही हैं. शी हैज अ मास्टर्स इन पब्लिक पॉलिसी, एंड बोथ ऑफ देम आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट Seva's entire work around what they have really done. Seva needs no introduction. I mean, it's been a torchbearer when it comes to the work that to champion the cause of informal workers. Then we have Dr. Bhushan Chaudhary. He is a seasoned public health professional with over 13 years of experience in strengthening government health systems across diverse domains, including primary health care, urban health, reproductive and maternal child health, nutrition, NCDs, and his efforts have been instrumental in leveraging key government programs like the National Urban Health Mission, the whole focus that the 15th FC, 15th Finance Commission ने जो focus लाया है on ensuring कि हमारे urban health centers और वो हम अच्छे से बना पाए, और also he has contributed to the PM Ayushman Bharat scheme. Dr. Chaudhary अभी जपाईगो में काम करते हैं and he's based in Lucknow in UP. Thanks, Bhushan, for joining us. Then we have Dr. Pradheeps Muthulingam, who is a senior consultant with climate resilience team at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, New Delhi. He has a PhD in ecology and environmental sciences, और ये भी करीब 1.5 दशक का एक्सपीरियंस लेके आए हैं on climate resilience, disaster risk reduction, and again looking at inclusive urban planning and an intersectionality with informal workforce and especially with SHGs and women groups. Xerxes Rao, who's an architect and an urban planner with over 2 decades of work experience, और इनका स्पेशलाइजेशन है अर्बन प्लानिंग, गवर्नेंस, प्रोग्राम मैनेजमेंट, कम्युनिटी पार्टिसिपेशन. इन्होंने बहुत सारा काम NULM के साथ किया है ऑन SHGs कैसे बन सकते हैं और SHGs को कैसे क्लाइमेट चेंज का इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है. एंड he's also leading all the sanitation workers safety, and he's going to talk more about how climate change is impacting one of the most vulnerable groups in our cities, which are sanitation workers. So thank you everyone for joining us today. With this, I would like to first invite Anisha Ben and Haley Ben. So Anisha Ben, are you there?
Yes.
Yes. सो अनिशा बहन, सबसे पहला सवाल आपसे ये पूछना चाहूंगी कि ये जो होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स हम कहते हैं, और ये इकोनॉमी है कितनी बड़ी, और मतलब क्या एग्जांपल्स हैं, होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स कौन है और क्या क्या मतलब क्या क्या काम में जुड़े हुए हैं, और इनकी हमारी जो हम इकोनॉमी की बात करते हैं, हम GDP की बात करते हैं, तो इनका कितना बड़ा योगदान है इस पूरे इकोनॉमी में. तो ये मेरा एक पहला सवाल था आपसे.
नमस्ते सभी को. जो होम बेस्ड वर्कर है यानी घर खाता कामगार है, तो बेसिकली जो भी बहनें हैं या भाई है, जो भी है वो अपने घर में या अपने घर के परिसर में काम कर रहे हैं, तो उन्हें घर खाता कामगार कहते हैं. घर खाता कामगार एक तो सिलाई, गारमेंट, टेक्सटाइल वाले भी होते हैं, अगरबत्ती, बीड़ी बनाना, कुछ घर पर बैठ के पैकिंग का काम करना वगैरह होता है. और इसकी GDP अगर देखने जाए, GDP में हिस्सा तो 5% तक का इसका हिस्सा रहता है, और ये बहुत ही बड़ी इंडस्ट्री है कि जिससे बड़ी बड़ी इंडस्ट्री में जो काम होता है वो ब्रेकआउट होके सब कुछ घरों में आता है. जैसे हम बड़ी इंडस्ट्री में देखते हैं कि जैसे हम जीन्स देखें, ये बहुत बड़ा गारमेंट सेक्टर है, लेकिन वहाँ का जो भी काम होता है, फिनिशिंग का काम हो गया या फिर उसका सीने का काम हो गया, कटिंग करने का काम हो गया, उसमें कुछ नंग लगाने का काम हो गया, उसका धागा कटिंग करने का काम हो गया, तो वो सारा का सारा होम बेस के पास आता है और इस तरह से पूरा चेन चलता है. घर खाता कामगार जो है वो काम इस तरह से करते हैं कि जैसे वो जो मूल मालिक होता है उसके तक के नहीं पहुंचते. घर खाता कामगारों के अंदर बहुत बड़ी सप्लाई चेन रहती है, जैसे कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, सब कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, उसके नीचे कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, इस तरह से पूरा सप्लाई चेन के ऊपर ये चलता है. तो बेसिकली ये है कि घर खाता कामगार है वो अपने घर में या किसी और के घर में या फिर अपने घर के आगे जो भी खुला भाग होता है वहां पर बैठकर काम करते हैं, तो उसे घर खाता कामगार कहते हैं.
थैंक यू सो मच अनीशा बहन. और जैसे अगर ये होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स की बात करें, और जैसे पहले भी आई थिंक मनविता बहन और श्रुति बहन दोनों ने ही बोला कि ये जो वल्नरेबल पॉपुलेशंस, इनके घर ही ऐसे बस्तियों में होते हैं जो हम स्लम्स बोल सकते हैं या इनफॉर्मल सेटलमेंट्स बोल सकते हैं, कि वहाँ अगर कोई भी आपदा आती है या क्लाइमेट रिलेटेड, अब फ्लडिंग कहें, हीट कहें, तो आई थिंक इनके लाइवलीहुड पे भी बहुत असर होता होगा। मतलब पर्सनल, तो आपके अनुभव क्या कहता है सेवा का के बेस पे, आपके आपके काम के बेसिस पे क्या आप देख रहे हैं?
जो घर खाता कामगार होता है, तो बेसिकली जो अर्बन एरिया है वहां पर बहुत ही छोटे घर रहते हैं और बहुत ही कंजेस्टेड होते हैं। तो जिससे उनके घरों में डायरेक्ट सूर्य प्रकाश आना या हवा आना ये पॉसिबल ही नहीं होता है। तो उनके उनके ऊपर तो वैसे भी बहुत ही कम रहता है कि उनके एक ही घर में वही उनका लिविंग रूम है, वही बेडरूम है, वही किचन है, वही उनका मेहमान वाला रूम है। तो उनके लिए जो लाइवलीहुड है वो घर पर बैठ के करने का काम है। जैसे हम बात करें कि अगर सिलाई काम कर रहे हैं कोई बहन और घर में अगर मेहमान आ गया तो उसका पूरा का पूरा काम रह जाएगा और वो मेहमान के जब तक नहीं जाएंगे तब तक वो काम करेगी। और साथ ही साथ अगर हम बात करें कि एकदम से अगर बारिश आ जाए तो उसका जो माल होता है तो वो रखने की भी जगह नहीं होती है, तो वो टाइम पे नहीं लाती है काम। या फिर अगर ले आई है तो वो पूरा अगर उसको बिगड़ जाता है तो उसको उसको संभाल के रखना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो उसका भी नुकसान उसको भरना पड़ेगा। तो लाइवलीहुड के ऊपर बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट आता है क्लाइमेट की वजह से। अगर हीट है तो घर पर काम लाने के लिए उसको दूसरी जगह पर से लाना पड़ता है। तो अगर दोपहर के टाइम पे वो काम उसका पूरा हो गया है लेकिन हीट की वजह से वो देने नहीं जा पा रही है तो वो लाइवलीहुड उसका कम हो जाता है, क्योंकि वो शाम तक उसकी वेट करेगी कि थोड़ा ठंडा वातावरण हो और उसके बाद वो जाए। तो ये भी एक लाइवलीहुड उसकी इम्पैक्ट होती है। वो उसके घर के अंदर टीन के जो पतरे होते हैं वो उसका छत होती है, जिससे हीट जो होता है वो बहुत ही घर में लगता है और किचन भी वहीं रहता है। तो उसके घर के अंदर डबल गर्मी हो जाती है जिससे वो काम नहीं कर पाती है। साथ ही साथ एक ही रूम में रहने की वजह से घर में बच्चे भी होते हैं और उस टाइम में जब हीट वेव होता है, जब गर्मियों की सीजन होती है तब बच्चे घर पर होते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ के वेकेशन होता है। तो एक वो भी पार्ट रहता है कि बच्चों के ऊपर भी उसका असर आता है और लाइवलीहुड भी उसका कट हो जाता है। साथ ही साथ ये भी है कि अगर वो सीने बैठती है तो कॉन्स्टेंटली पंखा उसको चालू रखना पड़ता है, तो एक लाइट बिल भी उसका बढ़ जाता है। जितना वो कमा नहीं पा रही है लेकिन खर्च बढ़ रहा है उसका, तो एक वो भी है। अगर हम बात करें कि बारिश अनसीजनल रेन जो क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है, तो अनसीजनल रेन भी काफी होता है अभी। घर छोटा है, स्लम एरिया है और पानी भर जाता है, चालियों में पानी भर जाता है। तो जब तक वो पानी भरा हुआ रहेगा वो काम नहीं कर पाएगी, घर की चीजें तो खराब होती है, साथ ही साथ अगर पानी भर जाने की वजह से माल के ऊपर दाग लग गया या कुछ हुआ तो उसका भी पैसा उसको मालिक को भरना पड़ेगा। दूसरा अगर हम देखें कि मशीन जो होती है सिलाई मशीन वगैरह तो इलेक्ट्रिक से चलती है, या तो बहुत गर्मी हो जाने से उसमें शॉर्ट सर्किट हो जाता है या तो पानी गिरने से उसमें शॉर्ट सर्किट हो जाता है। तो इस तरह से उसको उसका भी प्रॉब्लम रहता है। मशीन के अंदर अगर बारिश होती है तो मशीन के अंदर कुछ जंग लग जाता है जिससे सर्विस कराने का उसका पैसा बढ़ जाता है। यानी लाइवलीहुड पर तो है ही उसका प्रॉब्लम के कम हो जा रही है, लेकिन उसके साथ उसके एक्सपेंस भी बढ़ रहे हैं। तो क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से इसको काफी दिक्कतें आती है। हम बात करें अगर हेल्थ की, तो क्लाइमेट चेंज अगर है और हीट है और घर में भी बहुत प्रॉब्लम होती है, हीट की वजह से होती है, बारिश की वजह से होती है। तो हीट अगर ज्यादा है तो उसका बीपी का भी प्रॉब्लम रहता है। उसका या तो बीपी बढ़ जाएगा या तो कम हो जाएगा। पानी ना पीने की वजह से उसके यूरिनल इन्फेक्शन भी बढ़ जाते हैं। कई बार ये भी हमने देखा है कि स्किन डिसीज भी बढ़ने लगते हैं। और बारिश के सीजन में जो पानी से मच्छर वगैरह होते हैं तो उसमें भी उसको दिक्कतें होती है। तो लाइवलीहुड पर और उसकी हेल्थ पर दोनों पर ही क्लाइमेट चेंज का असर होता
थैंक्स अनीशा बहन। आपने सिलाई वर्कर्स की आपने बात करी, पर और किन किन टाइप के होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स होते
है।
हैं?
जैसे अगरबत्ती, हाँ, अगरबत्ती बनाने वाले होते हैं, बीड़ी बनाने वाले होते हैं, पैकिंग करने वाले होते हैं, लेकिन जैसे अभी हम अहमदाबाद शहर में देख रहे हैं तो गारमेंट जो इंडस्ट्री है वो काफी है, और उसकी वजह से अर्बन सेक्टर में इंडस्ट्री जो गारमेंट की फैल रही है, तो काफी काम, बहुत सारा काम ऐसा है कि जो गारमेंट का घर खाता कामगार के पास आ रहा है।
ओके, ओके, थैंक्स, थैंक्स अनीशा बहन। मैं हेली बहन को पूछना चाहूंगी।
तो अगर होम बेस वाला मैं बोलूँ तो पतंग बनाने वाले भी इसमें काफी होते हैं, और पतंग बनाने में भी काफी दिक्कतें आती है। जैसे हम बात करें कि अगर बारिश है तो पतंग बनाने का काम बिल्कुल भी वो नहीं कर पाएंगे, क्योंकि या तो वो प्लास्टिक में से बनेगा या तो वो कागज में, और सीजन की वजह से वो नहीं बना पाएंगे। साथ ही साथ अगर गर्मियों में बना रहे हैं तो जब पतंग का काम कर रहे हैं तो उसको कंपलसरी पंखा बंद करके काम करना पड़ेगा, और जो ग्लू यूज होता है तो गर्मियों की वजह से वो ग्लू पतला हो जाता है, जिससे वो चिपकता नहीं है, तो ये भी उसकी लाइवलीहुड के ऊपर प्रॉब्लम आती है। तो इस तरह के काम होते हैं।
थैंक्स। और अनीशा बहन, कोई कोई आंकड़ा, अहमदाबाद शहर में ऐसे कितने होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स होंगे?
अहमदाबाद शहर में अगर हम देखें तो जो हमने ऑर्गेनाइज किए हैं वो 1,20,000 है, जो पूरा होम बेस्ड वर्कर इंडस्ट्री है। जैसे उसमें गारमेंट भी आ गया, बीड़ी भी आ गया, अगरबत्ती आ गया, पैकिंग वर्क आ गया, पतंग वाला आ गया। लेकिन ऑलमोस्ट अगर अगर हम अहमदाबाद सिटी की बात करें तो लगभग 2 या 2.5 लाख में वर्कर्स होंगे।
और इसमें कितनी, 2 या 2.5 लाख में औरतें कितनी होंगी? आप अगर
अगर हम होम बेस्ड वर्कर की बात करते हैं तो 90 to 95% औरतें ही होती हैं।
हैं, करेक्ट। और इसीलिए मतलब जो आप कह रहे हैं कि ये कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी उनके लिए बढ़ रही है, औरतों के लिए, होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स के लिए। सो मूविंग ओवर टू हेली बेन। हेली बेन, आप ये जो अभी बात तो इन्होंने करी कि क्या क्या वल्नरेबिलिटीज फेस कर रही हैं, कर रहे हैं होम बेस्ड वर्कर्स, चाहे वो, हमने ऑक्यूपेशनल की बात करी और हमने रेसिडेंशियल की भी बात करी, उसमें एक जेंडर एंगल भी है। बट सेवा ने क्या क्या सॉल्यूशंस टेस्ट किए हैं, ट्राई किए हैं? आप और आप कुछ बता सकते हैं? पैरामेट्रिक हीट इंश्योरेंस, आप कल कूल रूफ के बारे में बता रहे थे, तो क्या 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 ट्राई किया है, टेस्ट किया है, एंड व्हाट आर द लर्निंग्स?
Uh, we have started a campaign called Clean Skies campaign, which is a campaign for climate resilience building, under which we have taken a couple of initiatives. So first, I'll talk about parametric heat wave insurance. So we started this insurance 2-3 years back. So when we started, we have also had quite lot learnings out of these insurance experiences. So when we started this insurance, we first conducted a survey and we gathered the data, and we when we went to the insurance company, we had some negotiations, and after considering last 10 years of data, it was decided that the parameter for the insurance trigger would be set at 46.5 degrees. So when the heat reaches at 46.5 degrees for 3 consecutive days, the workers would get the insurance payout. After first year, none of the workers got payout, and we were literally shocked. Then we realized that the data that we analyzed for the last 10 years, it was not very much affected by the climate change, because climate change is a very recent phenomena. So for first 2 days, for the first 2 days, uh, we noticed that it was triggering 46.5 degrees, but on the third day there would be a rain or some kind of cyclone or something, so that it wouldn't trigger. So after that, recently the insurance program that we had, we reduced the limit from 46.5 to 43.5. So how our product work is, we have partners who support us in this. So 300 rupees is the premium that workers pay, and another 50% is the premium amount is paid by our partners. So when the temperature reaches to 43.5 degrees and it stays there for 3 consecutive days, the workers get 300 rupees in their account. So after that, every single time it reaches to 43.5 or it crosses that, they get 300 rupees of payouts to the maximum of 1250 rupees. So this was not just by fluke. We had so many surveys and data collection and our own experiences that led us to this. As you said that Anisha Ben leads the trade committee meeting. So at Seva, we take always bottom up approach. So our workers came to us with the problem, and at times they are the only one who suggests a solution. We only try to implement it. So they came up with this, and when we started implementing, we had some learnings, and now we are progressing further. Now we are also trying to include other climate change issues such as rain or cyclones, so that workers can get benefit maximum out of it, because as you must have noticed, this year it was more humid than it was heat. So we are trying to enhance the scope of our insurance. At the same time, we are also pitching the government. For example, we are pitching this insurance to Construction Workers Welfare Board. Construction Welfare Board at present has 47,000 crores unspent cess in its accounts. So we are pitching that it is better that you come up with a this type of parametric climate change insurance, so that construction workers can be involved in this, and this insurance gives them uh, income security, and they can survive for a couple of days. Because as Anisha Ben mentioned, whenever there is a climate crisis, they have to completely halt their work for a couple of days, and for them they are daily wage earners. So the day they don't get wage, it is literally the survival question for them. So that's the entire idea behind parametric heat wave insurance. At the same time, we have also come up with a couple of other small initiatives. For example, cool roofs. So the cool roof is we paint certain special white paint on the roof of our workers' home, and this gives them the instant coolness. There is almost 2 to 5 degrees of temperature drop after this that we have noticed. The other one is sky windows. So those are also installed on the roof. So this is for the better illumination and ventilation, because for example, if we take example of home-based workers, they work in their home. They need good illumination, but at the same time their houses are so small and they don't have that much they cannot rather afford to have more lighting or more electricity expense. So after installing this, we have noticed that monthly electricity bill has dropped from 250 rupees to 90 rupees. And at the same time, their house temperature has also dropped almost to 3 degrees. So this has also been a very successful initiative. The other initiative that we started was installing miniature biogas plants at some of the places, some of the household of our workers. But actually, it is very expensive. It costed around 28,000 rupees, which is quite very expensive. So we think it is very important that it is very helpful, but it is very expensive. So it's not affordable or accessible for the workers. So there should be some kind of research and development in the area, so that this low energy or green energy appliances also comes with affordability. So, and one more thing that I would say is that we have collaborated with Harvard University to conduct a sensor study. So, this study basically started with the home-based workers. So, they are given Fitbit band and sensors to put around their wrist, and they are hang in their homes at certain places, just to monitor how climate change is impacting them. And the results were literally shocking, because we generally think that our houses are cooler than the outside, but the study showed that their houses are 4 to 5 degrees hotter than the outside atmosphere, because of the kind of built and because the kind of environment they live in. And the other thing that we came to know is that in the entire 24 hours, only 3 hours were the only three during 24 hours, 21 hours their homes were hotter, as hot as a hot plate, and only 3 hours was little bit better, little bit cooler. So I guess home-based workers are as vulnerable as anybody else, like other than construction workers, street vendors. So they also face the same kind of issues that others would face. On a
Thanks, Heliban, so much for outlining all of that. If you could take, Heliban, if you could take 1 more minute to just explain all participants कि ये parametric insurance क्या बला है और उसके फायदे क्या हैं?
Parametric insurance, as I said, it started with the idea that women workers had to lose their livelihoods due to heat or due to any other climate issue. So we started this to support them, that whenever there is heat, whenever you're losing your livelihood, you'll at least get external support so that you and your family can survive during this time. So this was the entire idea behind the parametric heat wave insurance. So every year, it's been 3 years we started this, and every year we have changed our parameters or the conditions or covenants of the program after learning from the earlier year, obviously. So I just explained the current program that we have had and some of the learnings that we learned during our last experiences.
Thanks, Heliban. I think I'll take the cue of जो आपने last में बात करी कि इनके health पे भी बहुत impact हो रहा है, right? And all of our, especially our vulnerable populations living in slums and slum-like settlements, plus all of our workers who are out for a predominant amount of time, right? So I think I think I'll now want to go to Dr. Bhushan for a follow-up question on the whole work around health, Dr. Bhushan. So, Dr. Bhushan, from a public health perspective, um, hello, are you there, Bhushan? Sorry.
Yes, I
Yes.
am there.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't see you. So from a public health perspective, and from data, how do you see climate change amplifying the vulnerabilities for urban poor? What is the data saying?
So in terms of vulnerabilities, climate vulnerabilities, I think everybody of us are aware of that, specifically in terms of urban areas. The informal workers constitute major workforce in the urban economy, and their living conditions are obviously not up to the mark, and these exacerbate their health problems due to climate related health risks as well. So there are multiple health risks related to the conditions related to heat, the air pollution, the noise pollution, unsafe working environments, and obviously the health per se for these informal workers. This has been traditionally taking a backseat in terms of family finances, the allocation of family finances for health services. So, the current data is showing the increasing trends in terms of all these climate-related health risks. Though we currently do not have the active systems to track all the health conditions related to climate risks, but the governments are in process to develop them. I think we as a civil societies and development partners need to handhold government and provide that technical support on how to build those data systems uh, uh, to better to make better use of the data for decision making and to predict the future trends in the climate related health risks.
Thanks, Dr. Bhushan. And are you, like you mentioned heat, you mentioned other aspects, but
Yes.
are you also seeing a spike in vector-borne diseases? Are you seeing a spike in other NCDs because of climate-induced, challenges?
Yes, yes, exactly. So the vector-borne diseases are on rise because of the climate changes, the flood risks which climate change has increased, the untimely rains, and as well as the temperature increase has resulted in increase in the population of the vectors which transmit these vector-borne diseases. So the UDSP platform, or the IDSP platform, which Government of India uses for disease surveillances, is showing considerable rise in terms of vector-borne diseases, and I think the government now should focus on building these surveillance systems, not only for the vector related conditions, but also for other conditions like the heat strokes, for surveillance of other conditions beyond vector-borne diseases.
Thanks. And I think two follow-on questions, Dr. Bhushan. One is that is there any data, I mean, to say kitna spike hai, or are you seeing from any one city or two cities where you've been working intensively? That's one. And second is our Indian or urban public health infrastructure, does it have the capacity to deal with climate change induced health impacts? What is your take on this?
So in terms of rise in the number of cases, I would reflect on UP's experience. So we have seen somewhere around 3 to 8 times of increase in vector-borne diseases outbreaks across the cities. So the city-wise increase is differential, but yes, this is a considerable increase in terms of numbers of the vector-borne disease, and in terms of other climate-related conditions like heat strokes, government did not have tracking systems for these almost 4 to 5 years back, but now the data is coming, the actual reporting is happening, and we are seeing the won't say it's an increase. We can't attribute it to the increase in heat stroke conditions because we did not have those data systems earlier. Now we are getting the data for last 3 years, and since this year the system has stabilized, so from next year onwards we can say that heat stroke conditions have increased and attribute it to the actual increase in the heat stroke conditions. However, multiple researches show that the increase in heat stroke conditions are as well on rise. And would you repeat the second follow-up question?
Yes. No, I was asking that does our urban public health infrastructure, does it have the capacity to deal with something like this? Do they understand right from, I mean, the individual capacities as well as systems capacities?
So in terms of systems, I would say governments are now working towards developing those capacities. We obviously don't have entire capacity to manage these conditions as on date, but multiple schemes by Government of India and multiple initiatives by state governments are focusing on building these capacities specific to the financial allocations given by 15th Finance Commission, the PM Abhin schemes where the health system strengthening is focused in terms of creating newer health facilities, increasing access to the urban poor population, and also in terms of establishing the laboratory networks which was not available earlier, or it was sporadic in terms of availability. Major cities had established laboratory networks, but the smaller cities were lacking that infrastructure. So, and it's a work in progress. And I think in next 2 to 3 years, all these works which started in post-COVID pandemic in 2021 will stabilize, and these health systems capacity will be in place to tackle the climate-related health risks and the associated factors. However, there is much more to be done. This is only a hardware aspect which is catered to, but there is also a soft aspect in terms of which the current health system is mainly functioning in a reactive manner and not in a proactive manner. In terms of assessing the risks, in terms of predicting the risk, and in terms of preparing the systems before we anticipate any of the outbreaks or any of the extreme climatic conditions. So the health system needs to move towards that proactive nature, and the health worker capacity building and the managerial capacity building is a major area where we should focus in coming years to effectively manage all these climatic conditions and risks.
Thanks. Thanks, Dr. Bhushan. And if there are any follow-up questions, I'll come back to you. I now move to Xerxes, you. I think you've been leading some of the programs from UMC which are looking at sanitation workers, and they are one of the most marginalized sections of our society. And um, tell us from your experience of working with waste workers and sanitation workers, um, what are the climate challenges that they are facing?
Thank you, Meghna. I think COVID showed us that they're the frontline workers. And I think that's where all of us really, really kind of looked at them as somebody who is really to be looked at. They're the most marginalized, informal, and vulnerable in terms of the residential vulnerability, occupational health, and entitlement vulnerability. So I think it's very critical that we look at that. And climate change is real, and this is also being one more layer added to their vulnerability. So I think we really need to look at that. At UMC, we have worked and pioneered one of the first ever sanitation workers safety and dignity scheme in the state of Odisha, which is called Garima, and then that was scaled up in Tamil Nadu and at the national level as the Namaste scheme. So, based on all the learnings that we have since last 5, 6 years, I think the way most of these sanitation workers are placed they are in a very, very vulnerable condition. So, if we simply look at the PPs that they have been provided, I think that design is really not done for the sanitation worker per se. They are mostly for the construction workers or any other, building and other things. So we really need to deep dive and understand what are those specific things that we will need to do. They work in various different conditions. For example, you look at Odisha, it's a very cyclone prone. You look at Tamil Nadu, urban flooding happens. Look at other coastal cities, areas, and all. So these are very, very important for us to really understand how things can be done. Heat is another major issue because they work across the entire day, starting from early morning. And as we were talking about the parametric insurance right now, and talking about at least 46 degrees to 50 degrees is what we are looking at. It becomes very critical to look at that they don't get dehydrated or exhausted in the heat, and hence it's very critical for us to look at these things. So maybe parametric insurance could also be part of these entire sanitation workers per se, providing them with clean resting places, toilets, areas would be very critical in these conditions. Where in Odisha, something called the Garima Grahas have been constructed, where the sanitation workers, it's like an office to them, and where they can go, they have safe access to water, drinking water, toilets, changing their clothes, and going back home. So that's something very critical, I believe, to be taken up. Right now, Dr. Bhushan also talked about different waterborne diseases, and that's because of heavy monsoon rains, where most of these drain cleaning workers would be working, and they are very, very prone to these kind of skin diseases and all, and hence health insurance is very critical. Health checkups at very frequent intervals is very, very critical here, that we talk about. The third very important aspect I would like, with rising temperature, is also the toxic gases which are in the septic tank and the sewer cleaning. And that's where most of the deaths happen. And here is very critically, we need to look at the government of India has come up with the ERSUs, where you do not have, they're looking at all full mechanized, 100% mechanization. So that's a very welcome step here for them. And in Tamil Nadu and Odisha, there have been trainings which are very critical for the sanitation workers on the sewer entry professionals, where they have been trained using a 1:1 model for sewer and septic tank, and how do you get into these and look at these toxic gases and stuff. So these are very good examples of how things can be taken up. And it's been very unpredictable in terms of the climate also. So they have a lot of insecurity in job, stress. Second very good thing that Odisha did was, instead of 8 hours, 6 hours was taken up as their work time, and hence that really helped them to kind of reduce their working hours and be not that vulnerable to those climate changes across that are happening as of today. So I think these are some of the critical pointers I would, make, looking at the interest in time also. I'll just pause here and take any more questions that are there. Thank you.
Thanks, Xerxes. I have just quick two follow-up questions, Xerxes, for you. One is, what's the gender angle in sanitation work? And is that kind of, how does that play out, both from an intersectionality of sanitation work and from a climate lens? And my second question is, to do this, how, and based on your experience, based on your work, how do you see the sensitivity of urban local bodies or of government to kind of rise up to the situation and manage this?
Yeah, thanks, Meghna. This gender is a very, very critical question. I think we have to really work and really understand. Women are at the forefront of most of these work. It's also very important that we look at them. The first example that I gave about the personal protective equipments, just giving you some examples of how the sizes of these PPEs or equipments that we give them is not very gender sensitive itself. So that's something. Second is the kind of uniforms that are being provided to women are also to be designed in a way that they are very comfortable in working. That's something what we really need to look at. The third is a time for them to work because they handle the households, they go to work and all. So I think that's again a very critical issue for us. Fourth would be looking at areas or the geographies that they are also staying, where the waterlogging, health issues, and everything happens, and they are really responsible for their households and the work to be done. So I think these are three, four major areas which really need deep diving and thinking through for us to do. And your next question on the ULBs, yes, it's very, very important. And I think just one more point I like to add also is giving them entitled security with entitlements. So under Namaste, the PMJAY cards have been issued to all the workers that have been enumerated across the country, and that's very important. A movement has also been brought in where most of the wages are being monitored through an app, and PF ESI is being done. So this is, I think, very critical for the women per se to save that money for themselves, the education of their children, or health issues, or very critical important things that come in later in their lives. ULBs, yes, of course, is very, very important as a stakeholder because the sanitation workers work with them. And I think here a major role also has to be the training and sensitization of the officials themselves for all these schemes and how they should be really looking at sanitation space, looking at all these issues and vulnerabilities of the sanitation workers. So I think it's very, very critical for them to look at it. We generally always believe that at the ULB level they know, but to sensitize them is, I think, the most critical part to take it up for them to own this entire process and not just saying that it is the sanitation workers who are supposed to do and let them do things. I'll just take a little time to give you one example of female sanitation worker under Garima called Junulata. She's from Cuttack, and she comes in for from a very vulnerable background. And then once we started training her from a sanitation worker who was very vulnerable to training her to become a trained personal into sanitation work, and now she's driving a desludging vehicle and owning one of them. So that's the power of, kind of training and looking at. And here, it's not only the training to sanitation workers, but also sensitizing how they could become the entrepreneurs, kind of in their lives and take these things up. So that's where the entire part of dignity also comes in very handy with safety. So I think it's very, very critical. And last but not the least is to have zero fatalities in sanitation work. I think is very, very critical. And for all these things, moving towards mechanization is what the government of India is doing. It's a very welcome step with the Namaste scheme kind of changing across the entire country. The ecosystem is changing, it's being done, and I hope that we will not see any of these deaths in the media very soon. And I think it's very critical for us to really, really look at all these issues. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Xerxes. And I think you brought out a very important point that this linkages of workers with social and financial entitlements is very critical, very important, so that it helps cushion the climate shocks as well a little bit. I think that's something this is super important. I think moving on to our last panelist, Dr. Pradheeps. Um, uh, Pradeep, from your vast research experience, and you've also worked on the Chennai Climate Action Plan with us, um, what are some of the strongest local climate action plans that you see that are emerging from Indian cities? And why do you say that they are really strong in terms of commitment?
Sure, Meghna. First of all, I thank Manvita ji and Kirti Bhai for handling the webinar today, and I'm very happy and glad to be part of the panel. This is my, I think, third time, and the first time when I came here on board, I spoke about urban heat island effect and how the master plan, the Chennai was preparing for the third master plan and all. So linking it, I wanted to speak about the local action plans, how it is being done in different cities in India. So when with my experience and research that I'm doing with, actually I'm proud of a former employee of UMC. We have did this city climate action plan for Chennai and Guwahati, and even looked at how we can explore and expand the horizon in different cities. And with the experience, I have seen that the local government in the
Pradheep,
cities.
I think your voice is breaking. If you can, I think because
Sure.
you're going back and forth.
Is it audible? Audible now?
Yeah, you're
Yeah, yeah. So with the most of the governments in the local states have interest in preparing the climate action plan, and they have done that. But when it goes into the governance model, every cities need to have the city-based action plans, and that's where the initiatives of C40 and the UMC and other organizations like INHAF, WRI, CEW, everything had come and they are working towards preparing the city-based climate action plans, city-based heat action plans, everything. So when with the short-term, medium-term, and long-term mitigation strategies and reducing the disaster risk, the plans are very much essential. And that too, when it comes in a urban planning perspective, which is a long-term focus, not only looking at the landscape, the infrastructure, but it is also look at the people, the communities. The vulnerable communities have a lot to lose because they are the first victims. And but is on the other hand, we need those local action plans to understand what are the vulnerabilities and how these vulnerable communities not only being the victims but also contribute to the resilience of the cities, because they are supporting the entire state trend economical model and the growth of the state and everything. They are playing a major role. So when it comes to local action plans, the local action plans directly focus on all these aspects, starting from communities, infrastructure, mobility, health, different sectors. So local action plans is a best placed model, I think, that would be essential for each and every cities. And now we are also looking at the villages, because all the places are exposed to disasters. So that is my experience with respect to local action plans, Meghna.
Thanks, Pradeeps. And I think building on like a city level climate action plan, I think CEW, the organization that you're currently representing, has also kind of worked on preparing ward level heat action plans. And I think that's a very granular, I think the grain further is kind of reduced. Can you talk about those? And can you also talk about if how do you also bring a focus on vulnerable communities, on informal workforce? As part of those action plans?
Yeah. At CW, we look at preparing the heat action plan for different cities in India, and we are supporting the National Disaster Management Authority. And with that collaboration, we are supporting various state governments. We are working across 21 states in India, and we are preparing city level heat action plans. And the city level heat action plans has its own nuance that focuses at granular level, that is ward level analysis. So we look at the vulnerabilities, the exposure, the adaptive capacities of entire city, l- dissecting at ward level. What are the ward level infrastructures available, be it health infrastructure, water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, and what about the vulnerable communities who are below 6 years, above 65 years, and the slum population who doesn't have the opportunity or who doesn't have the facility to cope up with extreme heat or extreme weather events. We collect the data at cities, city level, and we do the hazard vulnerability and risk assessment based on IPCC AR5 methodology, and put together with the biometeorological formula using the land surface temperature and looking at how the humidity also playing a role, increasing the felt heat by a human being. So that is one important thing that we look at preparing the city level heat action plan. So it gives us a detailed idea about at what level, what is the extreme high risk areas, which are the areas at very high risk, what is the adaptive capacity of it, say the adaptive capacity linking to the current existing health infrastructure, because the first focus is on safeguarding the life of the human being, and how it can be improved using a long-term solutions like urban planning, increasing the vegetation, linking it with the master plans, bringing the concept of integrating blue-green infrastructure, understanding the urban heat islands, and everything. So the city heat action plan, looking at granular level, bringing the detailed assessment of risk matrix. Then we recommend the short-term and long-term solutions. We also identify the task force, the responsible individuals at line departments, and since we are looking at ward level, we also consider the local governance, that is the councillors at ward level. We include them, making them part of the stakeholder and the task force committee. We identify the responsibilities, provide the detailed matrix to them, support them, and we also provide the capacity building training for these officials to understand and disseminate the information about heat and threshold that we come up for the wards. So that ward level threshold, heat threshold, will provide the early warning system at state level. So when the state disaster management authority gives the early warning signals or forecast to the districts, so the cities, the city commissioners, who is the chairperson of the heat task force committee, can immediately disseminate based on the heat threshold mentioned in the heat action plan. Say the high risk wards has to be given the first priority. So it gives the opportunity to prioritize the interventions. So interventions at various level. So that is how CW is supporting the government of Tamil Nadu. So in the first phase, we have prepared heat action plan for 11 cities. And in the phase two, we are currently preparing for the 14 cities heat action plan, again at ward level. And also we are preparing heat action plan for 37 districts at village level. So we are also doing this similar exercise for Gujarat, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and we are also engaging with Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand.
Thanks, Pradeeps. And thanks, everyone. I think I would want to circle back to all of the panelists for your last, I think last maybe some comments on what you think are some of one or two key recommendations for government, be it the national, state, or the local government, to kind of bring a sharper focus to looking at how can we look at this whole climate change impact, and how can we help reduce at least, or help better adaptation for informal workers and vulnerable communities. So what are those one or two key recommendations? And this is, I'm going to reach out to each of you in the panel. So Pradeeps, if you want to go first, since you're here, so what would your recommendations be?
As looking at the informal workers, as I said, that we have to stop, look at them as victims, and instead of looking at them as victims, we have to look at them as contributors to resilience. So first thing, as I mentioned, with the master plan preparation, we identified the locations which are very highly vulnerable to the disasters. So multi-hazard assessment has to be conducted at city level and integrated into the governance, so that the government can provide the interventions such as short-term interventions like providing the safeguarding infrastructures like cooling shelters, shaded vending spaces, climate resilient restrooms, and integrating the parametric health insurance for them. So all those things has to be integrated in the policy for each sector individually, because it focuses not only the vulnerable communities, but also make those workers like construction workers and police personnel, and even the workers, gig workers, and railway workers who are exposed to extreme heat and also for other disasters. So I think that would be my recommendation that to be given as a policy recommendation to the government.
Sure. And this would be mostly at the state level, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks, Pradeeps. Can I reach out to you, Xerxes?
Yeah. So Meghna, I think first is uh, to enumerate and understand where these vulnerable communities are. And I think that mapping and is very critical to plan the next steps for the ULBs or the governments of how and what could be done. And building on what Pradeep said, in their experience of working is something what you can really do that. And of course, yes, climate action plans is something what really will help the cities to take those very kind of decisions where all are the priority areas and what needs to be done. So I think these are two or three things. And the third thing for sanitation workers is we are already moving towards mechanization, and that also reduces quite a bit of time for the work for the sanitation workers, and hence that will also help them. So I think these two or three pointers
Sure.
are from my
And these are for your enumeration, your mapping, mechanization. These are
for I think both at the state and the ULB level because it goes very hand in hand according.
sure. Thanks. Thanks. Dr. Bhushan, can I come back to you? Hello. Maybe I think until Dr. Bhushan comes back, can I reach out to you, Haley Ben, Anisha Ben?
Yeah, so on a city level or local level, what we think from Seva's perspective is whatever the intervention that we come with, it should be gender responsive and gender inclusive as well. Because we have seen that there are a couple of interventions that government comes up with are more rather suited for men than women. So, for example, if we are talking about shelters, it is very important that it also caters to the demands of women workers as well. For example, we have recently started a shelter for head loaders. This is a very new initiative, so we are not quite sure how it would impact our women head loaders. But that is something to be taken care of, that the policies that we come up should be gender inclusive, and also the policies that we come up with should be also trade specific, because some of the things that is suited for street vendors might not be suited for home based workers. And the data that we rely upon should also be localized. So if we are talking about city, then maybe the area specific parameters should also be taken care of. और अगर हम लोकल गवर्नमेंट की बात करें तो अभी जो अहमदाबाद शहर में एएमसी द्वारा जो वेंडर्स की मार्केट बन रहे हैं, तो हम ये भी कर सकते हैं कि जो छत है वो सोलर रूफ की कर पाए, और जो कचरा निकल रहा है तो उसमें से हम कुछ रिसाइकल कर सके, कि जिससे हम उसको अलग से कर सके, जो डम साइट पर ना जाए वो कचरा। दूसरा है कि हम जो रेन हार्वेस्टिंग का भी एक प्लान कर दे वहां पर, तो एक वो भी हो सकता है वहां। तो ये, और साथ ही साथ अभी जो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर के लिए भी कुछ क्रॉस रोड बनाए हैं एएमसी ने, तो वहां पे भी सेम इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो सकता है इसमें।
Sure, sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think Dr. Bhushan I think, is probably not here. But thank you so much, everyone. We've had a very, very enriching, I think, Dr.
Hello.
Bhushan, yes.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I had asked one round of questions to everyone that if at all you have any key recommendations for either the national, the state, or the local government, that how do we bring this sharper focus on ensuring that we are able to better prepare, cities, better prepare our workers to adapt to climate change. So what would they be?
So, in terms of my recommendation, I think there should be a city-specific health action plans as well, which I think which we worked with UMC together for developing it in Uttar Pradesh, and making it futuristic for next 5 to 10 years, and predicting what will be the needs of urban population for what will be the evolving needs. That is key to making the health system more accountable and prepared to address these climate related risks of urban poor population, and certain policy level changes which focus on urban poor population, because current urban health policy focuses more on settlement areas rather than the population health needs. Uh, uh, as we all know that urban poor not only stay in or reside in slums, there are urban poor pockets beyond slums as well, and national urban health policy is yet to take that into account. So that policy level change is very much required to address the health needs of urban poor not residing in slum areas. So I think these are the two aspects which really needs to be addressed.
Thanks, Dr. Bhushan. I think very valid points that we currently only have very settlement focused an approach, but we don't have an individual.
Yes,
Or
and I think one more thing that the current primary healthcare programming doesn't take into account the occupational health aspects. So that is one more area where health systems need to focus. So thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Bhushan. I think we've had a very enriching, I think, experience panning. I think we've heard from very lived realities of how home-based workers, etc., what kind of challenges are they facing. We've looked at what kind of solutions have worked, the kind parametric insurance that Seva talked about, and how that can be scaled up to include other aspects such as rains, cyclones, etc. And how can this also be institutionalized at a government, at a government level? So we heard from Seva, we heard from Dr. Bhushan, who talked about this whole intersection of health and how I think that figure that you mentioned, that you're already seeing a 3 to 5 times spike in vector-borne diseases in cities of UP, is something which is very alarming in itself. And any such, I think, incidents in an urban poor family is going to push them into poverty very easily. So I think that's something which is very alarming. I think the whole work around sanitation workers and waste workers, again, an intersection between caste, between gender, between occupational health and climate. I think that's something that I think you really brought out, Xerxes, and the need to look at what are those leading practices that we're seeing in different states and how can those also be scaled up nationally. And lastly, we heard from Dr. Pradheeps about how heat action plans. I mean, Shruti spoke about climate action plans, but I think equally important is something that we need to have heat action plans to kind of have that very granular understanding of what's happening in the city and at a sub-city level. And Bhushan again spoke about a city health plan. I think the need of the hour is also now to kind of look at how all of these also integrate with each other. And then we have an integrated plan that a city can rely on with appropriate data, with appropriate evidence and monitoring frameworks to take forward. So thank you all a lot, very much. And I'm now going to hand over to Nikita, who's going to moderate the question and answer questions. We have some very interesting questions from the audience as well. So over to you, Nikita.
Thank you so much. It was very enriching discussion with the entire panel. In the paucity of time, we'll not be able to take all the questions, but there are some key questions, and since they are not directed to any panel, I'm going to do that based on my judgment. I think Manmohan, I'm going to air your question. It says, how is the response and the awareness among the stakeholders about the climate action plan? And I'm going to link that question by Shweta, whose question is, how can these action plans, which are focusing on informal workers, be integrated in development plans and master plans? I think Pradheeps, you would want to take this question.
Yeah, sure, Nikita. Yeah, so with respect to the questions,
Pradeep, are you muted?
no. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, I can
Yeah.
hear you. I can.
Yeah. Yeah, so the cities, how it can integrate the informal workers in the context of climate change by providing the master plans and development plans is what we have done in Tamil Nadu. In the Chennai metropolitan area, the CMD is mainstreaming climate action plan for third master plan. So in the work, what it is that we have to do the detailed hazard analysis. What is the climate risks that the city is facing or the locality is facing, and then we subsection level we had to go deep dive into the different locations because it has vast multi-hazard exposure is there. So we need to understand that, and the informal workers are spread out within this entire frame fabric of urban settlements, not only restricting to some places like slums, but they are there everywhere. They work across the entire area, but after the period of their work, they just disappear into their own location or the spaces where they live. Those spaces, by doing this detailed analysis, will give the preference and priority for the government to provide them the resilient infrastructure, the affordable housing planning, and everything that comes into forum. And then the necessity that arises is how their mobility is placed on, how their work shifts are there, and touching it with what Xerxes have mentioned about the sanitation workers development scheme and Garima, thinking about how these workers and their workspace can given a climate resilient angle. So provide them a space like a Garima Griha with the elevated level in a low-lying area will prevent flooding in that location and will not halt their work during a flood situation or cyclonic conditions. So in that way, these subsectional interventions identified by the plans in the climate action plans, and when it get integrated into the master plan or development plan by making it mandatory through the development control rules and the local area plans, will provide a climate resilience to entire city, entire state. So that is how I see these climate action plans and development plans can integrate and provide the support for the informal workers and the vulnerable communities.
Thanks, Pradeep. I'm going to take two more questions and then going to hand it over to Kirti Bhai to kind of summarize it. There's an interesting question, and I think Bhushan, you can take this one. It says, how are care workers affected during the extreme weather events such as heat waves and floods? What are the support systems currently exist to support them? I know and understand we did speak about the people and the health impacts on them, but we also understand that our care delivery and health givers also makes an important part of this entire ecosystem. So would you want to have a quick response on that, Bhushan?
So, in terms of care workers, though care workers provide care to others as well, but in terms of extreme climatic conditions and issues related to climate, their own family health is overlooked and takes backseat, and mainly because of their duties and their work related commitments and the fear of loss of wages, their own and their families' health generally takes backseat. So that is how care workers usually suffer and do not access to health services during these extreme climatic conditions. Further, it's being more difficult for them because of very traditional approach of the health system, where the primary healthcare facilities generally deliver services during working hours, and their needs of availing services or beyond working hours, late evening hours, which they generally prefer because of their day-long and long working hours. So they generally prefer private sector, which affects their family's finances as well. So largely these are the issues, and through the health system, the PMJ scheme, that is the health insurance scheme, which is being provided under Ayushman Bharat, uh, it's being it is making it easier for them to avail the services across government and private facilities. But then again, its usability needs to be customized in terms of these care workers, and there is more work to be done under that scheme as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Bhushan. I think I'm going to take a last question, and this talks about the role of government, civil society, and private in enabling the implementation of local action plans. And the follow-up question that it says, how can we better finance these local action plans? So maybe between Pradheeps and Xerxes, if you can just spend a minute responding to that, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks. This is a very critical question, I think. When you look at the finance, there is, I think, a huge finance being done through the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs through various different programs that they have. And that's where some of the major funding come in. For infrastructure, it would be Amrut or SBM, and now you have dedicated funds under Namaste. For state, Jal Jeevan Mission is another, or NULM for that instance. And for Orissa, Tamil Nadu, both these schemes have a dedicated funding. So I think this is very, very critical that any of these new missions or schemes happen, they should have a dedicated funding for them. Second is the municipal budgets, which definitely allow, and they are earmarked for the climate actions themselves. So what Shruti was mentioning in her earlier conversations about the climate budget is also something which the cities should look at. And as cities always say, there is a line item saying that, does it say that it is for climate action? Hence, I think it's very critical for us to even look at the climate financing and climate budget itself. Third, I think, and I personally also believe, there is a huge potential with the CSRs and the donors to come into this space. It's a huge space. It's a space where they could come in and fund some of these major projects, initiatives, trainings, and the softer aspects of it. So I think that somewhere is very, very critical. And obviously, last but not the least, the community themselves, they become part of this entire initiative, and through different ways and means, they would be working towards this. So I think these three or four major things is what I would, look at.
No, great, great. Thanks. Yes, I think that's very comprehensive. We've had a very enriching discussion. I would like to have now Kirti Bhai kind of come back and summarize this. And I think this is just a beginning of the conversation, very important one. And thank you to all the panelists and the participants. Kirti Bhai, I invite you for the closing remark.
Thank you. I think I just sent a message to colleague that we should close this at 5:58, and I think this is 5:54. So I have 4 minutes, and I want to do 4 things very quickly. Number one, without question, this has been a very rich discussion, very rich narrative. And I must thank just about everyone That's Manvita. Manvita, I heard you after a long time. I don't even remember when I heard you last. It's terrific. Meghna ji, Pradeep bhai, Xerxes, bhai, Nikita, Shruti ji, just about everyone. Thank you very much. It's very rich. As a matter of fact, I was thinking that, if I could find time this week or this month, I want to go and sit down with each one of you. The reason I want to sit down with each one of you is there is so much to learn. And the reason there is so much to learn is just, like everyone else, we're also doing a project in Chennai. INHAF is doing a fairly big project in Chennai called Climate Chennai. And I'm going to send immediately, I think today or tomorrow, the brochure, which is just a new brochure, which has just come out today itself, I think, and I'll share with you. The reason is there's so much to learn. And whether we like it or not, we're all working in silos still. Even though we are hoping, we're talking to each other, we are learning from each other, we're claiming that we are relating with others, but still there are huge silos which are operating. Just to give you an example, we are doing a major study on the master plan of Chennai. And we approach authority, they go on claiming that, we've done 26 studies in support of climate change. And despite all the connection I have, we have access to no one. So what I'm trying to say is this: there are huge problems, in terms of learning. But what I really wanted to kind of share today in a half a minute is this: that I personally feel, and this is based on my 60 years of experience, and Manvita would agree with me that yes, I have 60 years of experience, that, climate change needs to be truly bottom up. By nature, it's top-down thing. By nature, it's top-down. I think the concerns, the resources, the UN bodies working on it. But when you come and talk to people, it's a very different game. You talk to poor people, go to slum, go to a community. So what are you talking about? You're talking about heat, we know heat. You're talking about flood, we know floods. You're talking about, I think excess rain, we know excess rain. What are you talking about? And I personally feel this particular dimension requires taking climate change to people, believe me, is the major challenge. And other major challenge, in my understanding, is to make it bottom up in the sense that I go on saying I'm not interested, and in a manner of speaking, NDCs, nationally determined commitments. I'm interested in CDCs, city determined commitments. Moment you start looking at climate change in that particular way and direction, you start, and you say, climate change is not confined to geographical boundary of Chennai. But economy is not confined to, nothing is confined to, I think, the geographical border of a city. But if you start looking at it in that particular manner, I personally feel you're going to discover much more than we're doing at this point of time. So as I said, that I don't really have much time because it's already 5:58 and we must stop. But thank you very much again. This is the first of the 3 webinars, Meghna ji, we are doing, Manvita. So please start thinking when we do the second one. And believe me, if I'm traveling, I will not allow you to do it because I want to learn and sit down and hear you very carefully. So thank you very much. And I have no real words to thank you. It's been terrific. And I'm sure the second one will be as good as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chitrakshi, can we
Thank you, everyone.
switch on
Have
to
a
other
good
second
weekend.
meeting? Pradeep साहब जी, मैं आपको मिलना चाहूंगा, बात करना चाहूंगा, देखते हैं कैसा होता है. हाँ, अनिशा
हाँ
जी,
जी.
बहुत बड़ी बात कही आप तो, इतने होशियार हैं, इतना अच्छी बात बताई आपने. The main is the way you such cool manner in which say things, they reach you. Terrific. Terrific. Both
Thank you
of you.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
Bye-bye.
sorry,
See
Meghna.
you. Have a good
We have to
weekend.
switch over. Xerxes,
Thank
we
you.
have to switch over. But please allow me to do that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, sir. Bye.
Thanks, Bhushan, for joining.